Right, and coming to this topic, our today's topic is winding up. In winding up, there are sections around from 270 to 365. They are divided into four parts. Part 1, 270 to 303, and Part 2, 304 to 323. Part 3, 324 to 358, and Part 4, 359 to 365. Part 1 is about winding up by the tribunal. Part 2 is about voluntary winding up. And Part 3 is about provisions applicable to every mode of winding up. And Part 4 is about official liquidators. Actually, Part 2 is omitted because it has been covered in IBC Code 2016. That is our section 15 of the IBC Code, voluntary winding up by the corporate debtor. Right? And this chapter is huge, but the weightage is very less. So we are going to discuss only those sections which there is high probability of asking in the examinations. Mostly 90 to 95% of the questions from the exam will come only from these sessions which we are going to discuss. Right? Coming to this, our first part, that is 270. 270 is about 272. It is like normal section, introduction section. 272, 303 of the part 1 of chapter 20 is applicable for winding up by the tribunal. It is just giving introduction. And 271, 272, 273 shall be read in with together. That is, 271 is relating to the circumstances in which the company may be owned up by the tribunal, and 272 is a petition for winding up, and 273 is power of tribunal. Right. First, who are the persons they can give petition to the tribunal for winding up? That is discussed in 272, and 271 is the grounds. What are the circumstances in which the company may be wound up by the tribunal? Under what circumstances? What are the grounds for the winding up of the tribunal? That is 271, and 273 is powers of tribunal. Right. And coming to the first one, that is 271, circumstances in which the company may be owned up by the tribunal. There are 5 circumstances. Actually, the first circumstance, that is special resolution, is to pass by the company. It's not relevant because special resolution is required for voluntary winding up of the company. The same has been covered in section 15 of the IBC code. The section is not relevant, but it has been not omitted by the act. We'll read. First one point is special resolution passed by the company, and second one is company has acted against the interest, means the company has acted against the interest of sovereignty of the country or friendly relations with other country. It has acted against the friendly relations of other country, and also it has acted against the interest of security of the state, or decency, morality, public order. In this case also, this is one of the ground for winding up by the tribunal. And coming to the next third ground, any application will be made by whom? By the registrar or any person authorized by the central government to the tribunal, that is NCLT. If the affairs of the company are conducted fraudulently, there are three circumstances in this application for the point. The affairs of the companies are conducted fraudulently, and the purpose of formation of the company is fraudulent and unlawful. What is first condition? The main affairs of the company is conducted fraudulently, and second, the main purpose of formation itself is a unlawful and fraudulent purpose. And third one is the persons concerning the formation and management. The persons who is forming the company or who is managing the company are being guilty of fraud, misfeasance, and misconduct. Right. This is the third condition for remove, that is winding up by the tribunal. And coming to the fourth one, that is default. Default in what? Default in non-filing of financial statements or annual returns for the preceding 5 consecutive financial years. Financial statements under section 137 and annual returns under section 92. That is preceding 5 financial years, 5 consecutive financial years. If the company hasn't filed these 2 or any one, then it is a valid ground for winding up by the tribunal. We have come across 2 or 3 times this non-compliance of FS or annual returns, right? Where in section 455, that is dormant company, the same condition is non-filing for 2 consecutive years, and also in section 164 subsection 2, that is disqualifications. Here that grid called disqualifications of directors. The same thing, default is non-filing for 3 consecutive years, and in section 271, that is in today's our section, that is winding up section, grounds for winding up section is 5 consecutive years, 455 2 consecutive years, 164 2 3 consecutive years, 271 5 consecutive years. And coming to the fifth point is the winding up is just and equitable, no alternate remedy is available. Means the tribunal thought that the winding up is just and equitable, then any other remedy apart from winding up is not available to the company, and the petitioner is not acting unreasonably. These are the 5 conditions when the tribunal can make the company wound up. Right? What are the 5 conditions? First one is SR passed. It has acted against the interest of the sovereignty, friendly relationship with the state, security, decency, morality, public order. Right? And next one, third one is application. Application filed by whom? Filed by the registrar or any person authorized by the central government to whom? To the tribunal. And what are the three conditions? Affairs have been conducted fraudulently, or the formation itself is unlawful and fraudulent, or any persons who are in formation or management of the country are guilty of misfeasance, fraud, and misconduct. Fourth one is non-filing of our financial statements or annual returns for 5 consecutive years. And fifth one is it is just and equitable to wind up, and the petitioner is not acting unreasonably, right? This is the case. And coming to this grounds, we have completed 271 is completed. And coming to 272, who can file a petition to the tribunal that please wind up the company, right? After satisfying the grounds, there are 5 parties here also. Same, the company can file, the contributory can file, and the registrar as well as the registrar can file petition. Any person authorized by central government can file. Central government or state government can file. These are the 5 parties. What are the 5 parties? Company, contributory, any person authorized to central government or state government, right? If the petition is filed by the contributory, what are the conditions to be satisfied? Like, I'm a contributory means what are the conditions I should satisfy to file a petition to the tribunal for winding up? The first condition is I should be the originally allotted shareholder, means the shares have been originally allotted to him by the company. That is one condition. In that case, I can file as a contributory and I can file a petition to the tribunal. Or the second condition is shares held by him. See, if I want to file a petition, I have to check from the date of petition to preceding 18 months I have to take, and in that at least 6 months I am the shareholder. I'm having shares of that company. Then I can file the petition as a contributory. That is, shares held by him for at least 6 months or more during the preceding 18 months. This is important point. And next one is shares devolved on him by reason of death of any member, means any member has been died and as a nominee such person has got the shares. In that case also I can file a petition to the tribunal. Contributory, 3 conditions: allotted originally and held at least 6 months in the past preceding 18 months, and shares devolved him not the death of a member. Same thing if the petition is filed by the registrar. What are the grounds for filing the petition by the registrar? The grounds are similar. What are the 5 points we have discussed in 271 are similar, except the first point, that is special resolution of the company. Apart removing that point, remaining 4 points are there. Then the registrar can file the petition to the tribunal. What are the 4 points itself? The first one is, the second point is interest. Third point is the application by the register. And fourth point is the non-filing of financial statements or returns preceding the 5 consecutive years, and winding up is just and equitable. In these 4 cases, the registrar can file petition. And coming to the petition with the registrar, what are the conditions to be satisfied? The conditions to be satisfied is the registrar cannot file directly petition to the tribunal. First, it has to go to the central government and ask prior approval of the central government, and also the opportunity of making representations to the company shall be given by the central government before passing any order to the registrar to file the petition to the tribunal, right? And what if the petition is passed by the central government, and what are the grounds? You already know the grounds are the sovereignty, like the interest of the country is affected, that is sovereignty, integrity of the country is affected, and also friendly relations and with foreign states is affected, security of the state is affected, decency, morality, public order. Then the central government, state government can file for petition. And what is the petition filed by the company? The grounds is, the condition is the petition shall be filed by the company along with statement of affairs, right? And also notice to the register and submission of views of the register. If petition is filed by any other person other than the registrar, then the petitioner has to file a copy of the petition to the registrar along with such documents, and also the registrar shall submit his views within 60 days to the tribunal, right? Register has to submit his views within 60 days. The petitioner, other than the registrar who is filing for to the tribunal for winding up, he has to file a copy of that petition to the registrar, and the registrar will make views, will submit his views to the tribunal within 60 days of getting that copy of petition. And coming to our 273, the 271 to 272 is complete. 273 is about what action the tribunal will take. The tribunal will either reject that is cancel the petition, that is dismiss the petition, dismiss the petition, or it can order for winding up, or else it can think for, as of now I'll order for interim order, and after inquiry we'll pass a further order, or else and after passing interim order the tribunal has to appoint a provisional liquidator, right, for carrying the functions on behalf of the management of the company. The tribunal will appoint a liquidator, provisional liquidator, and any other orders the tribunal has may deem fit to perform its function, right? what the tribunal will do, it can dismiss the petition, or it can order for winding up, or it can make an interim order, or it can appoint provisional liquidators, or it can pass such other order as it deems fit. And also, what is the time limit for passing this order? It shall be passed within 90 days from the date of presentation of petition to the tribunal. Right. Before appointing any provisional liquidator, the same here, the tribunal will send to the notice that we are appointing this provisional liquidator, and the tribunal can obtain some representations from the company. Right. Right, and coming to the next section, there is section 274, that is relating to the directions for filing statement of affairs. Means if the company is filing the petition, it is a condition to the company that it has to file a statement of affairs to the company. Whereas other than company, if anyone filing a petition, that is the registrar or contributory or any other person authorized by the central government or the central government, then the company has to file a statement of affairs. How the directions will be issued by the tribunal, for this we'll discuss here. The filing of statement of affairs and objections. Petition is filed by any other person other than the company. If the petition is filed by any other person other than company, then the tribunal will order the company requiring filing of statement of affairs or the objections, if any, within 30 days from the date of order, right? Then the company has to file a statement of affairs, and also if any objection is there, it has to file the objections. Consequence of non-filing of statement of affairs to the company. See, the tribunal has ordered for the requiring the statement of affairs and objection. The company does not reply within 30 days. Then there is a consequence that what is the petition filed by the company, what is petition filed against the company for winding up to the tribunal, that company cannot oppose the petition. That right is lost. And coming to the next one, the directors and officers liable for imprisonment, jail, or both, because they have not replied to the order of the tribunal for requiring him to submit the statement of affairs and objections, if any. And coming to this submission of books of accounts to the liquidator, means the tribunal has passed order of winding up, and within 30 days from the date of order of passing the winding up, the company has to submit the audited books and completed and audited books of accounts to the liquidator. Means from this point, order of winding up only, the liquidator will take out the management, and he will do the operations of the business, right? He will sell the assets, and he will realize the assets, and he will discharge the liabilities. For this reason, the complete set of books of accounts, audited books of accounts, will be submitted to the liquidator within 30 days from the date of order of winding up. And coming to the next entry, section 275, company liquidators under appointment. How the company liquidators are going to appoint it, and what are their appointments, we'll discuss here. The appointment of company liquidators will be done by whom? None other than our tribunal is our boss here. And also, when the company liquidator is going to appoint, see, the provisional liquidator will be going to appoint at the time of petition is filed to the company for normal purpose, for just to pass the procedure. And after that passing of order of winding up order, that company liquidator to be appointed. That company liquidator may be another person, or he can be the provisional liquidator is replaced by the company liquidator, right? And next one is who can be a company liquidator. Means what are the eligible persons. The official liquidator means that they have certain exams. Then he shall be called as official liquidator. And also insolvency professional under IBC Code 2016. We have seen in the insolvency, that is, we have eligibility of resolution professional, insolvency resolution bodies will be there, agency will be there, information utility, IBBI. For that, either that insolvency professional or official liquidator can be the company liquidator. And what are the terms and conditions of the provisional liquidator and the company liquidator? The terms and conditions are as may be specified by the tribunal, and the fees payable to them also as may be specified. And what are the powers of provisional liquidators? Powers are the same powers as a liquidator, and tribunal may restrict some of its powers. The provisional liquidators will have the same powers as the company liquidator, but the tribunal, by passing the order, can restrict some of the powers of the provisional liquidator. Right? Filing of declaration means on appointment of company liquidator has been done, and it is the duty of the company liquidator to file a declaration to the tribunal, because tribunal only appointed him, to the tribunal, that declaration to be filed by the liquidator with the tribunal, disclosing his conflict of interest or lack of independence. He has to show that I am interested in this company, I cannot act as a liquidator, or he has to show that I am independent of this company, I can act as an independent. That is conflict of interest or lack of independence. He has to file a declaration to the company. And what about the appointment of provisional liquidator? Company liquidator we all seen, that is appointment of provisional liquidator. Then after passing the order of winding up by the tribunal may appoint provisional liquidator as company liquidator, right? Next section is section 276, that is removal and replacement of liquidator order. What is the removal and liquidation that is replacement of liquidator order? If the tribunal has the reasonable cause to believe that the company liquidator or the provisional liquidator to be removed and replaced, it shall write its reasons in writing, and it can remove, namely on the following grounds. What are the grounds for removal and replacement of a liquidator? That is either a company liquidator or a provisional liquidator. What are the grounds? There are 5 grounds. That is first ground is misconduct, fraud or misfeasance, professional incompetence or inability to act, or conflict of interest, or lack of independence. Right? These are the 5 points in which the provisional liquidator or the company liquidator can be removed or replaced by the tribunal. What are the 5 cases again? The misconduct, misfeasance or fraud, professional incompetence and inability to act as a professional liquidator, or as the case may be company liquidator, conflict of interest or lack of independence during the term of his appointment that would be justified for removal. See, if any case that provisional liquidator or the company liquidator has died or has been resigned or removal of the provisional liquidator, then the tribunal may transfer, right? The tribunal may transfer the work assigned him to another reasons for another complete liquidator for reasons writing to be recorded in writing. And also next one is the recovery of loss or damage. If the tribunal thoughts that because of this company liquidator or provisional liquidator has acted fraudulently and the company has suffered any losses, it can pass an order for recovery of those damages. And next one is reasonable opportunity of being heard. That is our Indian judicial system. For removing or replacing the reasonable opportunity of being heard, the principle of natural justice shall be given to the company liquidator or the provisional liquidator, right? Right. And coming to our next section, that is section 276, that is about talking about removal and replacement of liquidator. Right? Under what cases the removal we have discussed that. And coming to the next one, that is our section intimation to the company liquidator or provisional liquidator and register. That is 277. See, whenever the order of appointment of provisional liquidator or order of winding up has been passed, it shall be intimated within 7 days to the company liquidator, provisional liquidator, and to the registrar. And the registrar in written, it will issue that order in the official gazette. And if it is a listed company, it will issue in official gazette as well as it will send the order to the recognized stock exchanges in which the securities are listed. Right? And the winding up order shall be deemed to be the notice of discharge. Means if the company's employees, officers, directors are there, right, they are deemed to be discharged upon passing of the winding up order, right? And except business of the continued by the liquidator will be taken over by the liquidator. And there one important point here is the constitution of winding up committee. Means for one committee will be set up within 3 weeks on the date of passing of winding up. This is one important point. MCQ may be asked. One committee, already this question is asked in a previous attempt. One committee will be established with the tribunal within 3 weeks from the date of passing of winding up order. The company liquidator shall make an application to the tribunal for constitution of winding up committee. Who will make an application? The company liquidator will make an application to the tribunal. Please appoint winding up committee and will take out the process of winding up and liquidation. Right? What are the members of who are the constitution? What are the composition of this winding up committee? The composition is the official liquidator attached to the tribunal, the nominee of the security creditors, and the professional nominated by the 3 persons. And again, official liquidator, professional nominated by the tribunal, nominee of security creditors, official liquidator, nominee of security creditors, professional nominated by the tribunal. And what are these functions? Right? Functions of this winding committee. We'll see the functions of this winding committee. Right? Right, the functions as follows. So you see, the first function is they will take out the assets and they will sell the assets. First one, asset development is completed. Coming to the liability, what they will do, they will finalize the list of creditors and contributors, and first they will try to compromise with them, compromise or amendment and settlement of clause. And next one is right, what are the property you'll have? For they will try to recover the property, recovery of the property, cash, or any other assets of the company, including benefits that you read there in that. Right, this is 3 points relating to the assets and 3 points relating to the liabilities. And remaining points are review of audit reports and account of the company, right? And payment of dividends, if any, or any other function as maybe tribunal may direct from time to time. This is general question like that. First one is takeover of the assets and examination of statement of affairs, recovery of property, cash, or any other asset of the company, including benefits, review of audit reports and accounts of the company, sale of assets, what other assets we took out, the selling the assets, and finalizing the list of creditors for to whom we have to pay, and the contributors to whom we have to receive, and compromise, abandonment, and settlement of claims. They see the function of compromise, they will compromise the creditors, or they will abandon the creditors, or they'll settle the claims, and payment of dividends, if any other function as may be tribunal may direct in this case. And also see, the winding up committee has to submit a report and minutes of the meetings and this they have conveyed to the tribunal monthly basis. They have to submit the report as well as the minutes until the final order has been passed for the dissolution, right? the whose responsibility is the forming of the final order. The company liquidator will frame the final order, and it should be kept before the winding up committee for the approval. And after getting approval from the winding up committee, the company liquidator will place this final order to the tribunal, and tribunal will pass the order for dissolution. Right. This is about winding up committee and functions of winding up. Winding up committee, 3 weeks MCQ is expected. 3 members, official liquidator, nominee liquidator, a professional nominated by the tribunal. Right. And effect of winding up order. What if the under section 278 the winding up order has been passed? What is the effect? The order of the winding up of the company shall operate in favor of all the creditors and all the contributors to the company as if it had been out on the joint petition of creditors and contributors. It shall be in the favor of the creditors and contributors as if the order had been passed on the basis of the joint petition by the creditors and contributors. Right. Right. And the winding up has been order has been passed and provisional liquidator has been appointed. And what about the suits and proceedings pending, and what are the fresh suits and proceedings against the company? See, if it is a fresh suit or proceedings against the company, that fresh suit, it cannot be passed unless with the prior approval of the tribunal. If it is a pending suit before the Supreme Court or High Court, nothing will apply. Then the proceedings will continue. Right. This is about stay of suits, and this, if any. Right. If that further product that application, if any application to the tribunal for seeking the leave under this section means like we want to file a suit against the company, that the tribunal will approve it. Further, the tribunal will take a decision in 60 days. Right. That is, suit or legal proceedings can be commenced after winding up order or appointment of order only with the prior permission of the tribunal. When a winding up order has been passed or provisional liquidator has been appointed, no suit or other legal proceedings shall be commenced, or if pending at the date of winding up order, shall be proceeded with or by against the company except the leave of the tribunal and subject to such conditions as the tribunal may impose. Right. It shall be disposed of within 60 days. If it is a case of pending proceedings in appeal, nothing in such subsection 1 shall apply to any of the proceedings again pending in appeal before Supreme Court or High Court. If the case is pending in the Supreme Court or High Court, then it shall continue. Right. This is about section 279. Right. And next one, coming to the section that is section 281, that is submission of report by the company liquidator. We already discussed that the company liquidator has to submit a final report to the tribunal regarding this. The company liquidator will submit a report within 60 days from the date of order of passing of winding up. Particulars to be mentioned in the report the company liquidator. Where the tribunal has made a winding up order or appointed a company liquidator, such liquidator shall within 60 days from the date of order of winding up submit to the tribunal a report containing the following particulars. See, this is the particulars. What are the particulars that should be contained by the report submitted by the company liquidator to the tribunal? There are around 10 points will be there. First of all, imagine a balance sheet in your imagine a balance sheet. The balance sheet on asset side place these three things, and on the liability side place these things, and also in the footnotes write these points. Coming to the balance sheet on the asset side, place just write assets, and next one is trademarks, that is intangible assets, and trade receivables. And coming to the that is liability side, capital paid up, unpaid, and liabilities secured, unsecured. In secured with value and date. In coming to the notes, in notes we write guarantees, contingent liabilities, any pending legal cases. Right. We have written asset side assets, trademarks, trade receivables, liability side capital paid up, unpaid, and down liabilities secured, unsecured. Secured we have further wrote secured securities of value and date. In notes we have written guarantee and contingent liability and legal cases. Right. These are the main points. This is the technique to remember this particular to be in the form of a report. Right. Coming to the first one, asset. The nature and default of assets of the company, including their location and a value, stating separately the cash balance in hand and in the bank, if any, and the negotiable securities, if any, held by the company. The valuation of the assets shall be obtained from the registered value for this purpose. Means the asset of the company, the location of the company, the value of separate stating the cash balance, bank balance, and negotiable instrument security if held by the company, and any assets value shall be valued by the registered value. This is the point relating to the assets. And coming to the assets, next one, the trademarks. The trademarks is the details of trademarks and intellectual property, if any. That is the details of trademarks and intellectual properties, if any, owned by the company. Right. This is the trademarks. And next one in asset is trade receivables. Right. The debts are due to the company and the same names and address of the occupations of the person from whom they are due and the amount likely to be realized on account of thereof. Means the debt due to the company, the location and address of the such persons, and the amount of likely to be realized, that amount. Assets that we have completed. And going to the liability side, that is capital. In capital we have paid up. That is the amount of capital issued, subscribed, paid up. That is one point. And the unpaid capital. That is the list of contributors and dues, if any, payable by them, and details of their unpaid call. This is the liabilities. And coming to this next, liabilities secured, unsecured. See, the first one, that is the existing and contingent liabilities. That is note point. The existing and contingent liabilities of the company, including the names and address of the occupations of these creditors, stating the separate the amount of secured and unsecured debts. Means the existing creditors and contingent liabilities also we have to mention in this report, particulars of this report, and it shall be consist of secured and unsecured. Shall be the creditors shall be classified as secured and unsecured, right? That is one point completed. And coming to, you have further divided in the secured debtor. One more thing, like in case of secured debts, particulars of the secured securities given, what the securities given, and whether it be the company or any officer thereof, their value and the dates of which they are were given. Means in case of secured debt, what is the security given and what is the value of the security and the date on which the security is given. That thing shall be in form of a report, right? Our liability side completed, asset side completed, and coming to the notes point, we have notes in the written guarantees, contingent liabilities, legal cases. Our contingent liabilities has been completed, and guarantees. Any guarantees, if any extended by the company, that point shall be the form part of this report. And legal cases, any legal cases pending filed by or filed pending against the company shall be reported. Right? These are the 8 points, and one more 2.12 extra points are here. The details of subsisting contract joint ventures and collaborations. That is investment. Any joint venture is there? Any collaboration is there? Any subsisting contracts is there? Or details of subsidiary and holding companies, if any. Right? These are the points in which the particulars shall be contained in the report submitted by the company liquidator to the tribunal within 60 days from the date of passing of order. And also consider residuary point is always there. That is any other information the tribunal may direct the company liquidator to consider necessary to include in this report, right? And next, coming to the section 285, that is a settlement of list of contributories and application of assets. That what is the duties of this tribunal in this particular section? It has to settle the list of contributories and it has to rectification of the register of members and apply the assets for discharge of its liabilities. The power of tribunal to dispense the settlement of list of contributories. The tribunal has the power to dispense. It has to strike off. It has to remove the settlement. It can settle the list of contributories if not necessary to make calls. Means if any not necessary to make calls from the contributories to pay the money, or not necessary to adjust the rights of the contributors. If these two things happen, then the tribunal has power to dispense the settlement of a list of contributors. And coming to the next one is what is the liability of contributors. In this part, we'll discuss about the liabilities of contributors. Who shall be the contributory? The contributory persons are the present member or the past member. The present member we call it as a list member, present past member we call it as a list B members. And to what extent these contributors are liable for payment? There are 3 points they can be liable. That is the debt and liabilities of the company and cost charges for the winding up expenses and adjustment of rights among themselves as a contributory. These are the 3 things in which they are liable to the extent, right? And conditions for liabilities of contributors. What are the conditions for liabilities of contributory? If the maximum liability in case of a company which is limited by share, the company is limited by share, the liability of the contributory is the amount of unpaid shares held by the member. If the maximum liability in case of the company is limited by guarantee, if the company is limited by guarantee, what is the maximum liability? The amount undertaken to be contributed by the member in the event of liquidation. It is called the liability. If it is in case of limited by guarantee, it is the amount undertaken during to be contributed by the member in the event of winding up. That is what are the amount undertaken, that is the liability. And if it is limited by shares, the unpaid amount. And also the past member shall not be held liable in the following cases. Like for example, consider if he is ceased to be a member for the preceding 1 year or more before the commencement of this winding up. The commencement of winding up has taken place. The commencement of winding up will take place from the order of the winding up. From that, we have to go back 1 year. If in that 1 year the member is not a member and he is beyond that 1 year, then he is not a past member and his liability is not there. And coming to the next case, for any debt or liability contracted with the company after he ceases to be a member. For example, the past member is a member and commencement of liquidation order has been taken place, and before that that member has been resigned, that member has ceased to be a member, and after that the company has incurred any liability or debt. For that debt or liability, this particular member who has resigned or that membership, then that he cannot be liable for that debt or liability after he ceases to be member, right? And one more thing, important thing is that first the tribunal has to think that the present members are unable to repay the debts and liabilities of the company, then the past members has the liability, right? That is, unless the tribunal is of the opinion that the present members are unable to satisfy the required contributions, then the past members shall be liable to contribute in this case, right? Next, coming to our section, that is section 294, that is audit of company's liquidators accounts. That is the maintenance of books of accounts. The company liquidator shall maintain the proper particular books of accounts, including the amount of receipts and payments made by him in the form and such manner as may be prescribed. Like, see, the company liquidator will receive the payments on behalf of the company and will settle the discharge of liabilities of the company, right? For that, he will have to maintain the receipts and payments account on this behalf, right? In the prescribed form and manner. The presentation of an account of the receipts and payments of the tribunal. See, the receipts and payments account maintained by the company liquidator shall be presented to the tribunal at least twice in a year, not less than twice a year. Means the minimum thing at least twice in a year during the period of his tenure of his office. Present tribunal on account of receipts and payments such liquidated in the prescribed form in duplicate. It has to be 2 copies has to be maintained, which shall be verified by declaration in such form and manner as may be prescribed. Means such a report shall also be maintained with a declaration and it shall be in duplicate. The receipts and payments of shall be submitted to the tribunal at least 2 times in a year during the tenure of his office. On audit of accounts, if the tribunal thinks that audit is necessary, it can cause the accounts of the company liquidator to do audit. And in that process, the company liquidator has to produce the vouchers and information to the tribunal may require, and the tribunal may at any time require the production or inspect of any books of accounts kept by the company liquidator. I think it can pass an order. And filing a copy of accounts with the tribunal and the register means when the accounts of the company have been audited, means the order has been ordered by the tribunal, right? That the audit has been completed. Then the tribunal, then the company, see, then the company liquidator has to report, he has to make a copy of accounts which is audited. One copy shall be filed to the company liquidator and other with the registrar, right? See, once again, one more thing, one small confusion, I think. One more thing, like filing of copy of accounts with the tribunal and the registrar. When the accounts of the company have been audited, means the company have been audited, one copy thereof shall be filed by the company liquidator with the tribunal, and other copy shall be delivered to the registrar, which shall be open to the inspection by creditor or contributor or person interested. Right? If it is audited, then it has to file. The company liquidator has to file 2 copies to the tribunal as well as to the registrar. And if the accounts are relating to the government company, then if it is relating to the central government, then the copy of report shall also be sent to the central government if the government is mentioned in the government company. If it is a member, if it state government is a member, then the copy of that account shall be sent to the state government. If both are members, to the both central government and state government. And summary of accounts to be communicated to every creditor and contributory. The company liquidator shall cause the accounts when audited or summary thereof to be printed and shall send a printed copy of accounts or summary thereof by post to every creditor and every contributory. Right? Then the summary also shall be sent to the every contributory or every creditor. The tribunal may dispense with the complaints of these provisions of subsection, if any, as the tribunal has the power to give some exemption to his, if it deems fit, to the company liquidator. This is about audit of accounts of the company liquidator, right? And coming to the next one, there is arrest of person trying to leave India or abscond. That is section 301. Tribunal has the power to detention of the following persons. Who can be detained? Who may be ordered to be detained, right? Any contributory or any person having property, accounts or papers of the company in his possession. Means for example, why this detention is there? For example, winding up order has been passed by the tribunal, and some of the contributories are going to escape from the country, out of country. They can arrest the contributory because he wants to contribute for the winding up process as he promised, or any unpaid calls is there. And also any person is having that properties, accounts, documents of this particular company which is being owned up, order has been passed, and he is going to escape from this examination of documents and is concealing something, then the contributory or any other person any other person having the property or accounts or papers of the company in his possession may be detained. What are the conditions for detainment? For the purpose of evading payment of calls, that is point of view of contributory, or for the purpose of evading examination of examination, he is about to conceal the property or he is about to abscond. Examination of what? Examination of the property, accounts, papers of the company in his possession. In these two conditions, and these two persons can be detained. What is the order of detention? The order of detention, as the tribunal has deemed fit, it can detain for such period, and also detention, that seizure of books of accounts, also such period the tribunal deems fit, right? And coming to the next section, that is section 302, dissolution of company by tribunal. Means the tribunal will pass the order of dissolution. When the tribunal will pass the order of dissolution, the company liquidator will make an application to the tribunal that when the affairs of the company have been completely wound up, it will make an order of the tribunal to the tribunal, and the tribunal feels that it is just reasonable as per the circumstances of the case that the company should be dissolved, then that will pass a order of dissolution. The date of dissolution of a company is with effect on the date of order of tribunal. And what is the duty of the liquidator and register in this particular case? The liquidator, after passing that order of dissolution by the tribunal, the liquidator has to file a copy of order of tribunal within 30 days to the registrar, and the registrar shall record a minute of the same in its register. Right? This is about a dissolution of the company by tribunal. The liquidator has to file a copy of order of dissolution of the passed by the tribunal within 30 days to the registrar, and the registrar shall record the same minute in the register. Right? And coming to the next one, that is section 324. 324, debts of all descriptions to be admitted to proof. Means what are the debts to be claimed, means the dissolution has been taken place, right? And what are the debts? What are the debts, like the creditor will get the debts, and whether the debt is present or future or certain contingent or against the company, all the debts should be admissible to proof. There should be a proof whether the debt to be admitted, right? That is the section 324. Right, and coming to the next section, that is the section 328, the power of the tribunal to declare the fraudulent preference as invalid. Like the winding up petition has been filed, and after that the company came to know that winding up petition has been filed, and it has given some preference to some of its creditors in order to get them benefited in that priority list, right? In that case, the tribunal can order that fraudulent preference as invalid. Right, we'll just read this. And the company, any transaction is resulting in preference, so that in the event of liquidation of the position of such creditor would be rather than that position he would have been if that thing had not been done. Then in that particular case, that the tribunal is satisfied that such transaction is fraudulent preference. Then the tribunal can pass an order for declaring that the fraudulent preference has invalid, and also it can pass any other order for restoring the position to what it would have been if the company had not given the fraudulent preference. That fraudulent preference time period is like, for example, the winding up petition is happened today. Prior to 6 months, right? Prior to 6 months, anything has happened like that, then that transactions can be classified as fraudulent preference, right? Fraudulent preference was given within 6 months prior to the presentation of winding up petition. And coming to the next section, that is the transfers not in good faith to be void. That is section 329. A company transfer of any property or delivery of goods to any person, means a company has transferred the transfer of property or goods to any other person, and such a transfer or delivery was not made in the ordinary course of its business, and also such transfer or delivery was not in good faith and not for valuable consideration, then such transaction shall be valid. If it is ordinary course of business, and if it is for good faith and it is for valuable consideration, then such transaction will not be void under this section 329, right? And the period of this also here the same, 1 year is there, but fraudulent preference it is 6 months, here it is 1 year. The condition of applicability of section 329, the transfer of property delivery of goods was made within 1 year prior to the presentation of winding up petition. That is in our section 372, right? In our section 372 we have discussed, right? Once again, not 372, 272, sorry. 272 section we have discussed that 5 parties can file a petition. The same thing, after the date prior 1 year we have to check any good faith transaction is there or not. If it is not in good faith, it shall be void, right? And coming to the next section, that is section 330, certain transactions to be void. The transfer in favor of a trustee is to be void, means the transfer or assignment of all assets of the company in favor of a trustees for the benefit of creditors, such transactions will be void. If the company has transferred any of its asset properties in the name of the trustees, even if it is for the benefit of creditors, it shall be void, right? And coming to the next section, that is section 331, liabilities of a person fraudulently preferred. In 328 we have seen, right, the person's liability, the fraudulent preference shall be invalid by the tribunal prior to 6 months from the date of winding up petition being filed, right? Such persons whose preference has been fraudulently preferred, such persons also liable for penalty or something. We will discuss in section 331. Person fraudulently preferred, personally liable as a surety, he shall be liable as a surety. Any transaction is declared invalid in section 328 as fraudulent preference, then the person preferred shall be personally liable as a surety to the extent of lower of that person is acted as surety to the extent of the mortgage or charge on the property in which he is fraudulently preferred, or the value of his interest, lower of the mortgage or property charge on the property or value of his interest, whichever is lawyer. That is his surety penalty, right? And coming to section 332, that is effect of floating charge, right? Effect of floating charge. This section says as follows: where a company is being wound up, a floating charge on the undertaking or property of the company created within 12 months immediately preceding the commencement of the winding up. Here the period is 12 months, just as we have seen in our good faith wala point. 1 year, same 12 months. If where a company is being wound up, a floating charge undertaking or property of the company created within 12 months from the immediately preceding the commencement of winding up shall be invalid. Means if any floating charge is created on the property of the company within 12 months preceding the commencement date, it shall be invalid. However, it shall not be treated as invalid if it proves that unless it is proved that the company immediately after the creation of such charge was solvent. If the company immediately after creating this charge, that is floating charge, the company is solvent, then such transaction, that the creation of floating charge is valid. And also such floating charge shall not be invalid for also these things, except for the amount of any cash paid to the company at the time or subsequent to the creation of that company, or consideration of the charge together, right? Except for the cash paid at the time of creation or subsequent to the creation, and also that interest on that amount at 5% per annum as the rate notified by the central government. For these 3 points, that floating charge shall not be invalid. That means it is valid. And also one not invalid is that at the time of after the immediately creating the creation of floating charge, the company should be solvent, right? The time period is 1 year prior to the commencement of winding up petition, right? Right, and coming to the next section, that is section 333, that is disclaimer of onerous property. See here, the word onerous means troublesome or difficulty in recovery, right? It is a troublesome property, then this company liquidator can disclaim this such properties, such properties onerous property to the tribunal, and tribunal can accept that, right? What is the procedure? We'll see. Right, and what are the properties? What are the nature of property that may be termed as onerous? See, there are 4 properties that may be termed as onerous. The 4 properties are, we can have a shortcut, that is Love USA, L USA. L means here refers to the land burdened with onerous covenants, means the covenants are troublesome or difficult covenants. Then the company liquidator can disclaim such land as a onerous property. And U means that unprofitable contracts, and S means shares or stocks in the company, and A means any other property which is the property which is not saleable or not readily saleable. The reason is being simple: the possessor is bound to perform any onerous act and bound to pay any sum of money. If this is the case, then these 4 properties can be declared as onerous by the company liquidator, right? In this, what is the procedure for disclaiming these properties and onerous? The company liquidator procedure for disclaiming the onerous property. The company liquidator has to make an application for obtaining the leave. That leave of tribunal means that the prior approval of tribunal, it has to make an application to the tribunal. It shall be signed, and also it shall be in writing, right? And the time limit for making the application is within the 12 months after the commencement of the winding up, or the such extended period has to be allowed by the tribunal. This is within 12 months after. Here it is after the commencement of the winding up of the tribunal. Then company liquidator can make an application to the tribunal, and it shall be signed, it shall be writing, right? That such property shall be disclaimed as onerous. And the company liquidator will issue a notice to the person affected by that disclaimer. It shall also issue notice to the person which has affected by the disclaimer, and leave by the tribunal consequences. What is the tribunal will give approval for that? The damage are payable to the person affected by disclaimer. Such person shall be deemed to have been creditor and may prove that amount of damages as a debt in the winding up. Means because of that such property being declared as onerous, if any person has incurred any damages, and such person shall be deemed to be creditor, and he can prove his credit. He can prove that he's a creditor, and he can claim in that priority list winding up company. He can claim his damages from that assets, realization of assets, right? And next one is this company liquidator cannot disclaim this property as onerous if the following thing happens. What? No disclaimer if no notice given by the company liquidator on an application made to him. That is, if any person interested in any property or the 4 properties, then he can make an application to the company liquidator. Please tell that whether you are disclaiming this property, or whether you have decided to disclaim, or whether you have not decided to disclaim this property. Then the company liquidator shall issue a notice to the applicant within 28 days from the date of that receipt of this application from any person who is interested or such extended period of the tribunal, he shall have to issue a notice to the applicant that I am interested or I am not interested to disclaim. If he doesn't issue this notice within 20 days of such extension period, then the company liquidator will lost his right to disclaim the property as onerous. This is about the disclaimer of onerous property, right? Right, and coming to the next section, that is section 356, the power of the tribunal to declare dissolution of a company void. The tribunal can declare the dissolution is void if it has received an application of the company liquidator or any other person, interested person, make an application for declaring the dissolution as void to the tribunal, and if the tribunal thinks that the terms are deemed fit, then it can declare that the dissolution of the company is void. And after that declaration, the further proceeding shall be conducted as if the company had not been dissolved. And also, after that, the applicant who has made that application to the tribunal for making the dissolution order void shall also has to file a copy of the order of the tribunal to the registrar within 30 days. Right? The registrar shall register the order of the tribunal in its right. And here the time is like. The company is dissolved now, and that application by the company liquidator or any person interested shall be made within 2 years from the date of company which is liquidated. Then only the tribunal can make that dissolution void, right? And also the applicant has to file a copy of the order of the tribunal declaring the dissolution as void within 30 days to the registrar. Right? And coming to the next section, section 357 is very simple section. The date of commencement of winding up by the tribunal is the date of presentation of petition for winding up. We all know that is 272 section, that 5 parties petition. The same date is the date of commencement of the winding up of the tribunal. And coming to the section 358, right? Exclusion of certain time in completing the period of limitation. What is this? Notwithstanding anything in the Limitation Act of 1963 or any other law for the time being enforced in completing the period of limitation specified for any suit or application in the name on behalf of the company which is being wound up by the tribunal, the period from the date of commencement of the winding up of the company to a period of 1 year immediately of following the date of winding up of the shall be excluded. Means this section is saying like if any suit or any suit or once again any suit or application in the name of the company which is being wound up is required to be filed. In such a case, that some period shall be excluded, that notwithstanding anything contained in the Limitation Act or any other law for the time being in force. Then this section overrides everything. Then what is this section says, like in that particular case, the period starting from the commencement of winding up and after immediately 1 year expiry of that from the date of order passing that company wind up, such period shall be excluded for making application of suit against the company which is being wound up. Right? This is about 358, and we have two important. Right, and the following two sections are pending, that is 326 and 327. Before going to the 326 and 327, we will just see the order of payment of liabilities. That is overriding payment, section 326, and cost of expenses of winding up. First of all, the overriding payment as mentioned in section 326 shall be paid. Then cost of expenses of winding up. Then preferential payments under 327. Then the creditors secured by floating charge. Then the unsecured creditor. This is the flow of order of payment of liability in case of a company is being wound up. Right. Coming directly to section 326, priority of payments as per section 326. First of all, the utmost priority is if any workman due the payment of certain debts to be paid within 30 days of the sale of assets. For example, the sale of assets has been taken place. Within 30 days, the following three payments shall be paid. First, irrespective of anything, irrespective of whether it is secure creditor or not with secured asset, the following three payments shall be paid within 30 days from the sale of asset. What are these? Wages, salaries, commissions due to the workman. All the points related to the workman. Workman wages, salaries, commission, accrued holiday remuneration due to any workman, compensation due to any workman under the Industrial Disputes Act 1947. Right? These three things shall be seen prior to 2 years preceding the date of winding up order. Here the winding up order is there, not the winding up commencement date, winding up order. Where prior to 2 years from the date of passing of winding up order, if any three things, that is workman's wages, salaries due is there, accrued holiday remuneration due is there, compensation due to any workman due under Industrial Disputes Act 1947 is due is there, then it will be paid as a first priority. And coming to the next priority, after paying the first three things, then we have to go to check any other workmanship other than the following, other than the above three has to be taken as one place, and the secured creditor. And after that, the three payments we have made to the workman. After that, the workman due other than the above three shall be considered as one part, and the debts due to the secured creditor shall be considered other. And whatever the amount we realize from the secured security asset, such asset shall be distributed among these two in equal, that is pari passu we have to pay. That is, if the amount is not sufficient, we have to pay in pari passu, right? Payment of overriding preferential payments following debt shall be paid in full out of the sums related with the security unless the assets are insufficient to pay them, in which the case they shall abate in equal proportion. Right. Even though after this any security creditor is pending or any workman due is pending, then also they shall pari passu with other assets realized. Right. That is the meaning of this 326. And coming to the next section, that is section 327. Certain debts termed as preferential payments. After section overriding payments has been done under section 326, we have to go to the cost of expenses and winding up, then preferential payments, right? Coming to the preferential payments, section 327, the certain debts termed as preferential payments. There are 7 debts which are termed as preferential payments. These 7 debts includes employees here. There, 326 is talking about workman. Here it is talking about employees. Wages, salaries, commission due to any employee for a period of less than or equal to 4 months within 12 months before the relevant date, right? That is the wages or salary. We have to take the relevant date, means here that winding up order date. Before that date, 12 months, in that at least the employee due 4 months due only we have to make as a preferential payment. And such amount with respect to any employee shall be less than or equal to the notified amount. This is one point. And second point is contribution due to with respect to any employee under ESI or any other law within 12 months before the relevant date. Means if any contribution is due to with respect to any employee, we have to pay under the ESI Act, then it is due within 12 months of the relevant date, we have to pay that as a preferential. The second one is accrued holiday remuneration due to any employee. There no time limit is there. Accrued holiday remuneration to any employee, and compensation due to any employee under the Workmen's Compensation Act 1923. That is any compensation due to any employee under the Workmen's Compensation 1993. But in 326, the Workmen's Compensation is under Industrial Disputes Act 1947, but here it is a compensation to employee under Workmen's Compensation Act 1923. That shall be kept in mind. And any sum due to any employee from the Provident Fund, Pension Fund, Gratuity Fund, and any other fund for the welfare of the employees. Any sum due to employee and contribution due to employee under ESA, and any sum due to employee under Provident Fund, Pension Fund, Gratuity Fund, and any other fund for the welfare of the employees. Right? And coming to 6 point, that is the taxes and cesses due to CG or SG local authority within 12 months before the relevant date. That is any taxes to central government statement within 12 months before the relevant date. The relevant date is the winding up order. And expense for investigation in section 213 and 216. These are the 7 points which are making for preferential payment, right? And what is the manner of payment of these preferential payments? The manner is as follows. The preferential payments shall rank equally among themselves. Preferential payment shall be paid in full. If the assets are insufficient for payment in full of preferential payment, then the preferential payment shall abate in equal proportion. Right? If there is enough amount to repay the seven particular preferential payment, then we can pay. If there is not a sufficient amount, then we have to abate in equal proportions. Right? Here the employee does not include workman as defined in our 326. Employee is different and workman is different. And the relevant date is the date of winding up order. And applicability and non-applicability. 327 shall apply subject to 326. We are under the order we have seen. 326 cost of winding up expenses. 327 creditors secured by floating charge, unsecured creditors. And 327 shall not apply in case of a liquidation under the IBC code 2016. Right? 326 and 327. 326 is a little bit confusion. For that reason, I have added a video in the description. Kindly check that video. That's it. Winding up is completed. Right?